everybody? Wes, Dead Air Knipe here with Always
Typical Lydia.
Today's show we're doing the 1995 classic Tales from the Crypt, Demon Night.
I was waiting for the West Keeper because I was hoping that would be what sound that you would use to usher us in to, I don't know, something that is on one hand a throwback for some people. There's probably a lot of people who haven't watched or thought of Tales from the Crypt for a long time. Maybe an after school cartoon that they watched, or maybe something that they were introduced along lines of like Twilight Zone, watching it with their parents when it was on television, or reading the comics if they're super old or super into it. One of the two, because if you're super into it, this is not a throwback at all. As you mentioned in the previous episode, these are now airing on Shudder, the original series that aired on HBO back in the day. And this is what came of that. And it just speaks to that wild merchandising frame of mind that every show had to have a movie if it was good at all. And then it had to have a Saturday morning cartoon, and then it had to have a lunch kit. Like, did you ever have any other merch of Crypt Keeper, Wes?
Yeah, of course I did. I had some little figurines from the cartoon show, and who would be without their talking Crypt Keeper doll? They had two versions of it. You could get Crypt Keeper in his suit, or you could get Crypt Keeper like Hawaiian tropical. He was wearing like a straw hat and a Hawaiian shirt. You could have that Crypt Keeper. None of that for me. He has to look like he does on the TV show lids. So suit all the way.
Yeah, I do tend to agree. I think at the time I was watching a lot more X-Files because as soon as I heard that filter song, Nice Shot, playing in the beginning of this film, all I could think of is the seminal X-Files episode that featured the same song and a young Giovanni Ribisi. So, I mean, that was where my head was definitely at in 1995, being like a 20-year-old person. I don't think the Crypt Keeper held the same sort of appeal for me. I still can't reconcile horror and comedy. I have a hard time with it. I have an easier time now than I did when I was 20, I will tell you, because the minute that there was any yucks, I was out of there.
I think that some people who have a difficulty with this, and I'm not saying that you particularly have a difficulty in this way, but I've just noticed that when horror has too much accessibility, then it could turn people off who want to keep it internal. They want things serious, they want things dark, they want to revel in the counterculture, and they want to challenge norms and make people uncomfortable. Horror is, in some people's estimation, to make people uncomfortable, to not feel safe, to challenge your perceptions about what is acceptable, to break taboos. And everybody in a movie theater or at home laughing along like it's a sitcom, it can be a little bit distasteful or just not the vibe. And I could totally see a younger version of you, because you've been a hard case about horror and comedy for almost as long as I've known you, but you have changed, mellowed out, shall we say, and let things into your life a little bit that perhaps might have been too silly. Gang, it's why I've never suggested Return of the Living Dead, because it might be just too silly. Yeah.
If you want to hear someone bitch about the parts that people like the most, right? Like that's what I tend to do with those sorts of things. And mellowed out is a perfect way to put it, because I've certainly not warmed up to it or like matured in my taste or whatever like that. Mellowed out on my stance, because this was a conversation Chris and I were having last night when we were younger. Both of us had that same attitude of like, this isn't horror, this is comedy, I've been tricked kind of thing, where you go into something like Beetlejuice knowing it's a comedy. You go into like something like Shaun of the Dead, you know it's a comedy. Like your forefront in your mind is the comedy. I'm approaching this because it's a comedy for people like me, not it's a horror movie that happens to have comedy in it. So now I feel duped because I came here for the horror movie. Um, this sort of movie straddles that line, and it's those things that straddled the line that really I wasn't in for, because the show Tales from the Crypt is so much more horror, right? It's more horror than the cartoon was. It's more horror than this movie is. It rewatching it now, it's just fantastic. I didn't watch a lot of it though. I was busy watching X-Files, I guess, like I said, or whatever. But my mother did. She watched every single one of these like it was another chapter serial, like Twilight Zone, like all of those shows that the Outer Limits, that people watched at the time.
I really kind of came at this from a very, very different perspective. Not only am I younger than you are by a few years. So when the Tales from the Crypt show first aired, I believe it was 89 or 88 or 89 or something like that. I was a child. I was born in 83. But by the time the Tales from the Crypt HBO show I'd become aware of it, I was barreling towards the age of 10 years old. And so this show might have seemed a little dark and a little bit pushing past limits for some households. I always like to remind people that if there's any parents listening to this, you have to let kids be scared and you need to have kids find their limits. Yes. But beyond all of that, you need to understand the sensitivity of your own child. And so I would never suggest to, for example, my sister to have her kid who is now older than me to watch that. It's just a different environment, different upbringing, different kid than me. I grew up in an environment in which my parents were movie buffs and they loved to talk about movies and the process of movies. And so I didn't get scared of horror movies because they're fucking movies. They're not real. And yes,
Mhm.
sometimes your imagination gets away with you. You are a little kid. But HBO Tales from the Crypt had murder and mayhem and O. Henry style dark twists with cannibalism, twists with bizarre, freaky sex. There was all kinds of things because HBO wasn't television, baby. It was HBO. So you have to remember that this was, and by the way, we didn't have HBO growing up or in Canada at all. I watched Tales from the Crypt on TMN, the movie network, which was
Mhm.
something that my dad was obsessed with because my father and mother loved movies and my dad liked recording movies. So Tales from the Crypt was something that me and my mother did. Every single week we would sit up. My mom would stay up late with me and we would watch Tales from the Crypt and we would do a little dance for the intro. And I was obsessed with the Crypt Keeper. I was obsessed with those opening and closing sequences. I cared so much for the Crypt Keeper that I didn't necessarily care about the episode in between because that was just getting in the way of more Crypt Keeper. I wanted to hear the laugh and hear the puns and all the jokes. That's what I was interested in. But I did like the series quite a bit, and I remember I've dipped into the release on Shudder, and I've seen them all. At least in the first season, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I remember all of these. So it's really shocking that I was so young, and I also in this headspace when I was so young, I really wanted to be funny. I really wanted to make people laugh, and
Yeah.
so things and that I thought was funny, I would imitate. And so I wanted to be the Crypt Keeper. And as we'll talk about, I wanted to be the collector, Billy Zane's character in this movie. It so throttled me, but not just me, everybody. Because as you had pointed out, this HBO show was a smash hit. And if you are a horror fan of a certain age, you still have a fondness. And the magic touch is probably John Cassier's voice, which really
Mhm.
gave more character to the Crypt Keeper than he ever had. We've covered this, by the way, before, the 1972 version of Tales from the Crypt. And all due respect, it's a very stoic, forgettable performance. And the funny thing is that came first. And
Yeah.
you just think, well, that's not the Crypt Keeper because it's not the puppet. It's not John Cassier's voice. And in my opinion, if you're not doing the Crypt Keeper like the HBO show, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, I do agree. Although I do like the Crypt Keeper from the original so much better in a way because it does deliver that sort of stoic, monk-like, cloistered, scary, you're trapped with me and I'm gonna ferry you through these terrible tales. And yeah, I do like that from a gothic perspective, right? And not gothic, but gothic in horror storytelling gothic perspective, which the Crypt Keeper, as we know him, possesses none of. He is a show host. He is Elvira. He is in for the entertainment. He is there for the yucks, and he's good at it. That's the other thing is that even an old fucking coal heart like me can get a giggle out of the Crypt Keeper. And I think that 20-year-old Lydia probably secretly did too, even though I was quite the opposite. I wanted less Crypt Keeper, but I wanted less Elvira. I wanted less Svengoolie. I wanted less everybody because I just wanted to deliver the goods. I wanted the horror story. I wanted to see the show of the week. I wanted to see Monster of the Week if that's what it was. I wanted to think about the paranormal entities if there were any to be had. I wasn't so much in for the host, but when this movie hit, I was intrigued because I think that I wanted it to be I wanted it to be like a real blockbuster. I wanted it to be I don't know, Evil Dead 2. I wanted Deadites. I wanted it to be something that it's not exactly, which is weird because I liked films like this. Let's say Prophecy was a great film that reminded me quite a bit of this, although darker. And I don't know why this didn't really hit the mark for me as far as a story of good versus evil and people getting drawn into that eternal battle and it having like a real, well, slash fake biblical story kind of driving it along, which was endlessly fascinating. And religious horror is always like one of my favorite little tidbits. But this just tried to pull on too many threads, maybe. I can appreciate it now for what it is mostly a comedy, I guess.
It has a lot of comedic elements, to say nothing of the Crypt Keeper himself. Billy Zane is delivering a very comical performance, and
Very
to the point.
Beetlejuicy, who's my hero.
Yeah, yeah, and he is at a level that nobody else in the film is. He delivers his lines in a way that nobody else does, and it really just seems like he had so much fun and energy that it kind of belies how gushy and gross this movie is. And it really is such a beautiful showcase of practical effects. And they're not afraid to go places. And I mean, killing a kid and being very graphic about certain things that, again, belies the Crypt Keeper himself.
Mhm.
And I think that it's one of those things that they were demonstrating. In my opinion, I view this film as a demonstration of them realizing, in their estimation, the full potential of what the HBO show could be if they had more of a budget. There was more glitz and whiz bang to this whole proceeding because this show was popular. And I mean, it was one of those shows in which it was almost like the Batman 66 show. Like, famous people wanted to be on it. They had Whoopi Goldberg and Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was a Saturday morning cartoon show that I made sure that I woke up to watch because it was more Crypt Keeper, and they toned it down because it's almost perfect. Because if there was a lot of kids who were having fun with the Crypt Keeper, but the show was too violent and gory, or just twisted and dark, Well, here's your cartoon show. And as we said, lunch pails and action figures. Making a movie seemed like the next logical step. But I think that for you, perhaps the thing that you were noticing was there was a horror film that was being filtered to you through Spud McKenzie, the original party dog. You were not interested in anything being filtered. But without the Crypt Keeper, and you were to just look at this as it really is an interesting mid 90s oddity.
It's right up there with like Tremors or something like that, where it's executed well. It's a decent script. The effects, like you said, are gushy, but boy, do they hold up. They hold up even today. I was very impressed. The only thing that didn't hold up was some shots of the green goo, or maybe the green eyes, their souls escaping their bodies, being released from their tortured souls. Maybe that was, like, the only effect that didn't really hold up. Otherwise, all the physical effects and the bloody effects and the gore, as it were, uh, held up very, very, very well. And it is way more gory than I recall, because maybe I just tuned out. I was too busy rolling my eyes and didn't see everything that I was meant to. I do enjoy the storyline, though, and I think I remembered most of the biblical flashbacks more starkly than I remembered anything else. The one thing that I did forget, and this owes it to their sense of experimentation or adventure in filmmaking, were all the dream sequences. Well, they're not quite dream sequences, it's the glamour sequences when the collector has tricked his target. And oh boy, those were fun. Those were fun almost like owing to his other role on Twin Peaks. It had sort of like a Twin Peaksy feel when he was the one calling the shots. Or, Jim Carrey the mask in other scenes. So it really vacillated between a very drop dead serious, demonic, powerful being and uh, Jim Carrey.
It does have a lot of Jim Carrey in it that I never really noticed. And this was in and around the time of Ace Ventura. So I'm wondering if old Billy Zane dipped his toe in a little bit to just kind of give it the all righty then. But
Mhm.
I was obsessed. I was so obsessed with this movie. And I don't know why I never brought it to the show before. It might be sometimes I'm too precious with certain
Yes.
films. And I think that I might have this film too close to my chest, and I would fear that you would say you hated it, you didn't want to do it, and then I would be pissy for, a week or something like that. But I just think that it's interesting that you were going to suggest this movie to me, and I was curious because typically this isn't your cup of tea. So what made you want to bring it to the show?
I wanted to take a break from the drop dead serious horror, I don't know, feel bad hit of the summer adjacent kind of stuff that we covered in the lodge. I wanted a breath of fresh air, take it back to splatter pictures roots in a way, to choose something a little older and sort of to get us more into a summertime mood, maybe. That's part of it. Because nothing says summertime to me other than sticky, gross, dark, and sad Stephen King films in August. But spring, summer, what goes down cooler than a mojito or a horror comedy, right? There is a seasonality to this sort of thing in my estimation. You don't wanna watch a horror comedy in the dead of winter. No way. You watch The Thing in the dead of winter. But when it's, getting bright out and we're starting to get our blood up a little here in Canada, as the sap is rising, so are we. And what puts you in a better mood than The Crypt Keeper? And we didn't know, as you pointed out, that it was going to be streaming on Shudder. That was a sleeper hit for us. We did not know that. But I think it's a perfect time to ease into a few other horror comedies too, and maybe some horror comedies that are a little darker than this, which is always fun.
Yeah, I think it's time that we crack open a long, hard one, Lydia.
God damn. That scene is hilarious. And it is a product of its time in certain spots, right? Like the chase sequence that this opens up with and the religious overtures throughout the film are kind of timeless, right? Like there are things about this film that could have happened at any time. I think that it is and it's not a Western horror either, but it does take place in the South. So I think that that also owes to it because you could have something like the Mission Hotel standing to this day, looking and behaving exactly like it does right now. And it's sort of like a place at a time.
Well said. But here's the challenge. What is this movie even about, anyways?
You can't kid a kidder, and you shouldn't double cross a demon. Oh my god. Just you should not ever double cross a demon in this manner because as we see at the very end of this film, and I would like to see Demon Knight 2, where it continues on from the bus ride. Uh this is going to go on for eons and eons and eons. So you should have never done whatever it is that set this demon on your trail.
There's something that I completely forgot, no matter how many times I've seen this film, and we've estimated that it's a couple of dozen times that I've
Yeah.
seen the full thing because I used to watch this movie after school. I forgot that they just straight up start this exactly like the HBO show. They do the full HBO Crypt Keeper intro. And I thought that was wild because it's just a big glitzy episode of the show. And they're not trying to differentiate it whatsoever. If you liked the TV show and you went to the movie theaters, you're getting the TV show with a far larger budget.
It's similar to the X-Files film, similar to the Simpsons film, other TV shows that had films at the time. It felt like just a big long episode. And I think it's also a good testament to that intro because they didn't change it or redo it or anything. It is the literal episode intro from the HBO show. So it shows what sort of production value they had, that it can be projected on the big screen, so to speak, and brought into our homes today or a DVD or whatever, Blu-ray, and still look really, really good. Like the tone, the Danny Elfman sound, the look of the as we're moving through the house that the Crypt Keeper lives in the basement of, I suppose. I never really try to think too hard about why does he ramble around the rest of the house ever, or is he just more comfortable in the basement? Is he an interloper of some sort? Do they know he's there? Like, does he wake up like that every day? Imagine starting your day with that shrill laugh.
I think he's just so goddamn happy to be up and out of that crypt. But you're not the crypt keeper if you're not keeping the crypt. So he's got to be in there at least most of the days, or at the very least, he maybe is just like a sad bachelor. There's times where he never gets out of his bedroom. And
Yeah.
I view the crypt down there as his bed. It's like a bachelor pad. So I think the rest of the house is perfunctory, is because look at how many cobwebs are there. And when you open up that bookcase that slides open, I mean, it looks like it hasn't been opened in a century, let alone week by week, thanks to the folks at HBO. But we are going to be treated to a sequence that seems like we're in the third act of a good old fashioned revenge corpse Tales from the Crypt. This is as tried and true as a cola formula, Lydia. This goes all the way back to the pages of EC Comics. By the way, comics are going to be interspliced throughout this film in very interesting, cool ways, including a sequence that I absolutely adore towards the end. But here we are with the beautiful Busty woman letting her, you know, that I'm assuming her rich, fabulously wealthy husband has been murdered, and she's on the phone with her lover, her secret lover, that they have conspired to kill. And now she is going to take a well-deserved post-murder bubble bath. I'm assuming her lover was probably his lawyer or his brother or something like that, his business partner, somebody to screw him over of all of his fortune. And as he lays in the basement in an acid bath, I don't know where you would get this, but he's in one, and he is going to stalk this woman and reach up with his hatchet to deliver the killing blow. And of course, it's a movie scene. And who's our director? Straight up in jodhpurs, it's the Crypt Keeper himself.
I think it's perfect. And I do like how the story, like you've definitely explained it in Mad Libs, that the antagonist could be anyone, the protagonist could be anyone. You just pick and choose from previous episodes of Tales from the Crypt as to who is on the other end of that phone, right? And does it matter? We've got our busty blonde, we've got our blood. That's all you need, as far as a lot of filmmakers have to say. And I think the Crypt Keeper would make an excellent director. He's a bit of a bitch because he's bitching at John Larroquette, which is the cutest little
So
uncredited role. Yeah. Like,
Oh.
yeah, he's being a terrible, terrible director. And, based off of someone's behavior, right? So, yeah, I like this intro quite a bit. And it takes us out of the idea that, although we're going to be plunged right back into that this is a typical episode, right? That we've got this typical episode set up. This could have been any story. This could have been ad-lib, mad-libbed, pick and choose, paint by numbers, script that they were filming, quote unquote, until we get our Crypt Keeper sort of hello kitties intro that we have been waiting for, right? When it first starts, we're like, oh, this is all very serious. This is a very serious long episode of Tales from the Crypt. And then, oh, no, it's not. Because the Crypt Keeper gets to address us by name and let us know that he's gone full Hollywood, which I guess we already knew, right?
We did. He's reveling in selling out. One of the big differences, to let you know that this ain't the HBO show that you remember, this is the first time that the Crypt Keeper is shot full body. You get to see him walk around and move. That's done through a combination of a person in a costume, and you only see the back of them, and like almost, I would assume, the same way that they would do Chucky in certain sequences in Child's Play. And then you get a little bit of stop motion, a little bit of rotoscoping, or however they accomplish this, to get to see the Crypt Keeper in all of his glory moving forward. This is like seeing Kermit the Frog on the bicycle. This is seeing the puppet in full motion. And that lets you know this is a motion picture, Lydia. And he is reveling in this big Hollywood glam. And I love how they leaned into this. They're not trying to pretend that we're a TV show and then we made a movie. The crux of the movie is that they were a TV show and now he's making a movie. And here's an episode of the show, but you're in the movie theater to watch it. And he makes no, there's not a lot of puns about the story itself. He doesn't really even go into like tonight's tale. And he just says demon night, and we're there and we're into. The tonal shift is actually kind of hilarious because this sequence that you had described earlier with the filter song, a very serious song about a very serious thing that happened, and you're seeing no jokes, you're seeing a car chase, a fiery explosion, and it really does have a complete different tone.
Brayker versus the Collector, with the cops involved who take on a little more of a Keystone Cop or good old boy attitude later. At first, it's serious business. And it is a big tonal shift. And it is an episode that I think I would love to see, where they remain in this sort of world where it is heaven versus hell, good versus evil, the devil versus an agent of Christ or Jesus or God or somebody good, for lack of a better term. And it's just this dark, eternal chase. It's the Great and Secret show all over again. It's kind of like Prophecy. It's like Warlock. A lot of those darker 80s religious tinged horror films that I like so much, coupled with the, I don't know, I guess modernity of a car chase. I really did enjoy this, and the high stakes of it all. You're definitely starting in the middle of the action with this one because you've got that fiery car crash and somebody, both guys, absolutely living through it. One of them sneaking his way off to get help from the townsfolk, the other sort of propositioning the cops to like help me come and find this guy I was trailing who stole something from me. And everyone's, sort of keeping secrets from one another, obviously. And it's a dark story of intrigue and chase. And you want to know what goes into this case that the collector has. Like, you're very interested in the tattoo on the palm of Brayker. Like, it's all very intriguing and dark. And that slowly, it's not like all of a sudden we've got Jim Carrey and alrighty now kind of attitude. It slowly shifts into a place where later on when a sponge pops out of Billy Zane's mouth, it fits. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. We start to shift into more of a comedy tone, which is neat. I like it. I think that helps me ease into the fact that this is more comedy than horror. Aside from the Crypt Keeper, because the Crypt Keeper doesn't really matter as far as setting the tone. He's going to be the Crypt Keeper is going to Crypt Keep, and he's going to be the same as he is in his intros and outros, and we already know that. The only thing I did think, I always wanted an interstitial in the middle of the program with the Crypt Keeper.
Oh, you are speaking my language. I would have adored that and ate it up as a child. And obviously, if any episode had more Crypt Keeper, I would heartily agree. And I suspect that if it had aired originally on a station that had commercials that interrupted the programming, I bet you they would have done a mid-length interruption where it's like, we'll get back to the story after these messages, but first I'm going to do like a goofy little thing. And because it was on HBO, they didn't really do that kind of stuff. The interesting thing about this intro that I had remembered they'd leaned into a little harder than what actually is the case, but I thought that it was more of a mystery which one of these two guys is the problem. Because Brayker is disheveled and there's no dialogue between any of them. So we don't really know who wants somebody else. Is Brayker effectively the dog in the thing? Is he the Trojan horse that is entering this place that this other person is trying to stop? He did steal something. The collector is after something, and we don't know he's the collector until later, because there's this aspect when Billy Zane comes out of the fire and speaks to the cops where he's coming off as he could be FBI, he could be a U.S. Marshal, he could be somebody that he says that is on the side of the good or the law or something. Something has happened, certainly, that bears investigating. These two cars going 100 miles an hour have exploded, yet there are no bodies. And one person who says that, oh, airbags, gotta love them. But Billy Zane is playing this pretty straight, and he's a man on a mission. And this mission is going to take him to Brayker, who has found, first he has tried to steal a car in which somebody scares him away. Young Danny is going to see that Brayker is trying to steal a car. So we've already seen him try to steal something. He runs into the darkness and encounters old Dick Miller, always a welcome sign. And one of the best things about this movie is how much screen time Dick Miller gets. If you're a Dick Miller fan, I mean, you're not going to get much more screen time unless you're watching Bucket of Blood. So he is going to get to this place that is a motel / permanent resident. It's weird because Irene is going to deliver a line of dialogue that I never paid much attention to, but as an adult, I'm thinking to myself, wait, what?
Pretty much. I think that it's a little more of a bordello than we think. Like, certainly there is a working girl in Cordelia living there. Whether she likes that title or not, I think that's what she mostly does because she acts like that's what she does. And I think that she was sizing up Brayker as to somebody who she doesn't want to spend a lot of time there. So it's like, well, if I can take him for a whole lot of money, if he's gonna stay here for a week, then he's probably on the up and up. But if he's just like looking for an hourly visit, I don't think I want that sort of scumbaggery here. Maybe that's part of it. Cause yeah, it seems to be that people stay there for quite some time. It's a business motel, Wes.
I suppose it would have to be a business, and they need to get down to the business of selling rooms. And Brayker happens to have a big old wad of cash. We meet a large cast of characters, and there is lots of people here that you're going to recognize from all kinds of films and television all through the 1990s. Obviously, the big name here is Jada Pinkett Smith, at this point still just Jada Pinkett, very young, in her early 20s by the time she was doing this role. And as I said, Dick Miller is here, and it you are learning the lay of the land. And you have like Caroline, the working girl. You have Roach, who is just visiting here as a real asshole. Although I do really like his mesh shirt.
A
Uh,
white mesh shirt,
his,
Wes? You're a white
his,
mesh shirt kind of
his,
guy?
I couldn't pull it off, but he looks very dashing in it. But I think that when we're at this point, they're still kind of playing a little bit of both sides in terms of, is Breaker trustworthy? Is he actually dangerous? Billy Zane says that he's dangerous, and listen to your friend Billy Zane. He's a cool dude. Uh, when the police and Billy Zane show up to this motel, they need to get down to brass tacks and figure out what is going on. Breaker loses his fucking mind immediately and just pulls out a switchblade and puts it to young Jada Pinkett's throat.
Because he will do anything. And we'll see as the film continues. This has been a long term lifestyle of his. Running from the collector, I suppose, trying to find any amount of break that he can and quiet to, like, I don't know, have a bath and a meal maybe? I don't think we see anyone eat food. Well, no, we do see him eat food. We see him slurp down what, pea soup and ketchup? Like, absolutely disgusting. I had to look away from that for a little bit. But I mean, he can't catch a break, it seems. So of course he's going to jump into action and start trying to tell people that he isn't what he seems. Just let me go. Don't give in to his, I don't know, his glamour without saying as much, without telling people what's going on. Would it be easier if he would have just been like, you know what? He's basically the devil, and I'm basically an agent of Christ with the Christ's blood here in this thing. So I need to get away from him. So if you could just hold him real tight for a while and let me get a head start, like, and I mean, I guess the movie would be a lot shorter, but would it be a lot easier to swallow?
Easier to swallow than that slop he was eating. I thought about
Oh,
you, by the way,
uh,
during that
yeah, had
food
to look away.
sequence. I said to myself while watching it out loud, there's no way Lydia is watching this scene and not turning away, because it is gross even for me. Now, there is a little bit of logic to what you're suggesting about just coming clean. However, I will cautiously remind you that the one way for anyone to think that you're crazy is to refer to yourself as an agent of Christ.
Oh, yes, I suppose so. What's interesting about this scene is that the standoff begins happening at what it was at a church. The Mission Hotel is named as such because it was a church that was deconsecrated, I suppose, at one point, if they even bothered to deconsecrate it formally. Not that I have much care about whether ground is consecrated or not, right? Doesn't really matter. Have I been struck by lightning walking into a consecrated ground? No, I have not. But would Billy Zane? Possibly, possibly. So I don't know how much of power that this place still holds. Although it still does have gorgeous stained glass and crosses all over, but it's a perfect setting for this sort of standoff. And it stands in as a bit of a conversation about the modernity of the church and just in what low favor it had been experiencing at the time. Probably for the first time, it was really unprecedented amounts of people not attending church, not identifying as Christian. Even more so now, it's just been like a complete downward spiral for the church since that time. But I guess 70s, 80s, 90s, very few people were attending church. Probably way more real estate was being deconsecrated at the time than ever, and there was all sorts of abandoned churches in the South, especially or through the Rust Belt. I mean, I don't even know what Michigan looks like now, but I'm sure that there's a mission hotel here or there, and I think that that sort of stood in for the lack of faith, and this is why these sort of creatures can move among us unbidden and undetected, right? So it was an interesting conversation that we're having there in the midst of a horror comedy because it does get a little goony, a little Riccio here for a second.
That's a deep cut, and I appreciate it. Yeah, Dick Miller's character, Uncle Willie, he had said that it got shuttered due to lack of interest. So that tells you everything that you need to know. God has forsaken this place. The people have forsook it first, and then perhaps God later. They are going to get to the bottom of this, Lydia. These officers of the law are going to bring them both in because they just got word on the computer that the car that the collector was traveling with was also stolen. So you have two destroyed, stolen vehicles. So let's just get to the bottom, put that weird key in this box, and we are going to go down to the station. The collector shrugs his shoulders a bit and says he tried well and punches his fist straight through the sheriff's face. This scene is great. And I want to say the gooniest thing about it is they don't try to make this cool. They try to make it seem like maybe the collector didn't even really realize that his hand would go through it because he can't get it out. It's stuck in there. And he's
Mhm.
pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling until he's ripping off the face. Irene's puking, everyone's screaming, they're crying, and he uses the head of the now ripped out head of this officer to punch Brayker in the mush with it, and it makes a little like almost like a silly sound that a head going into another head typically wouldn't make. So there's a lot of very graphic things happening, and I find that it's interesting watching Irene just explode and vomit because it's so disgusting what she's looking at, and this is not what normal people look at. They don't look at somebody getting their head punched all the way through and then ripped off. And so that's a very serious reaction, but this whole scenario is so cartoonish.
Very, very Looney Tunes. Although it would satisfy the gore hound in me, right? Like it is a very funny yet gory scene. There is like actual almost slapstick slipping in blood, which I always like. I like it better in a more serious movie when somebody does the pratfall in blood, but we get a little bit of that, and we get a little bit of "I told you so" kind of attitude from this scene. So I do like what it does. It puts us into a more comedy mode. It is gory, and it sort of reconciles those things with the slipping in blood, which is always my favorite.
Absolutely. And I guess you could say that the collector isn't pulling any punches. But he is going to, like Bugs Bunny, jump out a fucking window when the key is put against his head. Now, this is going to burn and light up. It's going to glow red. And we can see that this key has power. And when it comes into contact with what is surely a demon, this is the Demon Knight after all, that it becomes activated. This sequence, I cannot tell you how happy this sequence is. This place is hereby condemned. And he cuts his hand and just splashes this neon glowing blood. It looks like the blood from the Predator movies, just all over the place. And like the children of the Hydra, with the teeth getting thrown around in that old Harryhausen movie, we have these demons spring up from the muck and the ground. And I love the look of these demons. I love the way they move. This is such a selling point to me, and they look so good. What do you think about these demons?
They do look really good. They've got this sort of xenomorph, alien, bug-like kind of look to them, which puts them in a category of their own as far as demons go. They are people in suits, sure, but they don't look like people in suits. They chose the right ectomorphs for the job to put in these particular suits. Or I mean young gangly teens. I don't know who played the demons, but they the makeup, the look of them, the effects, the way they move, the way they behave. I made a joke about Deadites, and they are kind of Deadite-ish, except they don't have the one-liners and such. They are a fount of comedy, but they are also very realistic-ish looking. If demons existed, they'd be realistic looking, I think. And they do look scary. And that's like they are horrific looking. There's a jump scare with them at one point, which actually worked for me. But they are creepy and dark and evil looking, and I think that's what it really takes to sell me on a demon. Like, you can have little demons that are 3 feet tall and carry a cloak, but as long as they're fucking creepy, it works. Or you can have demons that look more like zombies and have one-liners and things like that, but as long as they're gory looking, then it sells it for me, and these guys are a perfect marriage of that, where they're dark, they're creepy, they're scary, they're gory, and they're dangerous.
There's this moment where the collector sheds his literal persona, not in the sense that he's dropping his guys, but in the sense that he throws away the cowboy hat, he throws away the long brown duster, he shakes it out by making fun of like, hold down, motherfucker. And from that juncture forward, he is at 11 the whole rest of the movie. He is theatrical. He is like liquid. He moves in a very sort of seductive, like a dancer. And he is constantly almost winking at the camera, but the demons themselves settle for the studio audience because he's playing for them almost. And we are going to see him attempting to seduce each one of these people to let him in, because there's more to these rules than you might imagine, Lydia. One, these demons can be felt as long as you shoot them in the eyes. If you thought shooting a zombie in the head was a tricky enough shot, you have to hit them in the eyes. And sometimes it seems like you need to destroy both of the eyes.
Yeah, that's what I gathered.
Then also, this key has an additional power. You can seal up entranceways. And this really captured my imagination as a kid. And I used to look around at windowsills and doorways and imagine dropping a little drop of blood, and I liked the red glow. The effects are a little dated, but between the lightning eyes and the glowing blood, it just works for me. It's fun. It reminds me of fucking laser tag. So I just to use another
Yeah.
90s reference.
Yeah,
so
right?
I really am just so intrigued by all of this. And even as a little kid, I used to walk around my house pretending I was one of the demons. And so I was really into this movie in a way that it's so charming that I don't, so I just don't really know how to say enough nice things about it, but acknowledging that the fact that, it's not the greatest movie ever, but this whole sequence is got me locked in. If it wasn't enough that the Crypt Keeper had introed this film, this sequence when all hell literally breaks loose, I'm sold, hook, line, and sinker.
I like it tempered with some of the more serious points. Like, we do have this chase sort of idea going on. Someone evil or good is chasing someone evil or good for some sort of relic, which definitely catches my interest. We have the intrigue of Wally, who seems to be sort of a scapegoat that works slash lives at this hotel that is Cordelia's. I don't know. I guess he just is in love with her. And this is sort of like unspoken tension between all of them. I really like the idea that this is a house of ill repute to some extent, perhaps, that the cops have been there often enough and they've dealt with Roach here and there, and that he is banging Cordelia while Wally watches on. Like, all of these very serious notes are sort of being brushed to the wayside because I don't know who you would take as the demon king and the demon knight. Like, demon knight means Brayker, right? He is the guy that is fighting the demons, or is it demon knight as in the collector who is a knight of the demon realm? Or are the demons the demon knights?
I believe it's Brayker. He is the
I think
demon
so too.
knight. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they say as much later on in the film that the collector has killed demon knights before, and I'm assuming he's not talking about himself or his minions. So we have this scenario going on now where they are sealed in, and now we're just in a good old-fashioned siege movie. This is Night of the Living Dead, Lydia. This is Assault on Precinct 13. This is people in a perfect hideaway that cannot possibly have any points that are weakened, and we even have debates amongst people. We should just give up Brayker. Roach is very much in favor of that. And then the additional plan of we need to escape this place because the basement also has a mine shaft in it.
Cleo the cat leads us to this because in all of the threatening of children and the lines that are crossed in this film, the one line that is not crossed is that the cat does make it out alive. The cat doesn't get hurt. And the cat is sort of helpful because the cat leads us to the air blowing through the mine shafts below. And I would just assume that immediately the demons are already there, and they sort of are, but you know, they think through this. They open up the mine shaft as soon as they all go into the mine shaft to start leaving to get to the cars and drive away from the demons, I guess, like they're not all knowing and all seeing. Brayker does seal them in the mine shaft and seals the house again by putting some of the blood at the base of where they enter the mine shaft. The mine shaft's kind of a cool little area because like it's already been dark. The lights have gone out and we're dealing with a lot of natural light in the house. But in the mine shaft, it's lit like a spooky ooky mine shaft. We're down in the crypts. We're in the Coliseum. So it is a really nice setting. And we've got sounds going on in there because we can hear what sounds like a child whimpering down a different pathway. And Jada Pinkett's character separates from the group, creating that sort of horror tension of like, oh no, she's going to end up being tricked. Because if there's one thing we know about demons, and to quote the collector, who writes these rules anyway, am I right? Is that they can trick people, and they will. So I assumed right away that this would be a demon, but it's not.
No, it's young Danny. No, we've seen him before. Before we enter the mine shaft, I do want to point out, just talking about that demonic seduction, because we're going to see Billy Zane do this by taking his first victim. You see, they're going to play on people's strengths and their weaknesses. And we are going to see that Caroline is in a position in which people do dismiss her. They do insult her. They do just think that she is a common whore. And we see the ways in which the collector can manipulate that. Now, Caroline has also had two different conversations with Roach and also Wally. Roach has been trying to get Wally to team up against Brayker and also trying to get Caroline. He just wants to talk to everybody. But it's going to be the collector who is able to, the seals may not allow the demons to physically cross these thresholds, but it's nothing to say that they cannot spiritually cross the thresholds by making you open to being possessed. This is the deadite factor of
Hmm.
this movie, because not only is the collector able to summon demons, he's also able to possess you, not with himself, but essentially turn you into another demon. He promises Caroline love, and then she turns to a demon and kills Wally in for his troubles, and then she herself is killed by the group. It's only then that they decide to make their way down into this mine shaft, and then that's where they discover Danny. Now, Danny did have parents who are also in the mine shaft, and if you thought the young boy might have been possessed and he wasn't, that's surprising. Don't you worry, his parents are. And let me ask you this. Do you find Danny kind of aloof, far more aloof than a child ever should be, to see his parents killed in front of him?
Yes. While he was not aloof earlier in the film, because he encounters Brayker trying to break into their car, and right away is like, "Dad, there's a guy out here breaking into your car." He's not detached or aloof or has his nose stuck in a comic book. He's there and present and as a man, a little tiny man of action. But not anymore. I don't know, he's not a simpering, whimpering little kid either. So it's a weird little role that they have for this kid. But he certainly carries on well after seeing his parents turn into demons and killed. This ruins their whole plan because they're chased back into the house, which is convenient because Brayker has sealed that entrance to the mine shaft. So as soon as they all pour back into the house, the demons can't come in. So there's like an invisible wall, right? That nothing can breach.
Nothing can breach unless, of course, you shoot one of the demons, who just so happens to be Roach's old boss. And that explosion, because by the way, these demons don't just drop dead, they erupt. It's like the Highlander and you cut off somebody's head. They erupt in this green lightning that can deal damage. That's like, has the power, it seems, like lightning itself,
Mhm.
maybe to a slightly lesser degree, because Wally did take that point blank to the chest and didn't die. So I don't know, but it's certainly enough to destroy the seal, and the demons begin to pour in, the ones that haven't been killed. So they have access to the bottom layer of the house. Now, fortunately, they are able to seal off the upper floors, but now they're all stuck there in a worse position. Brayker has this obsession with staying in the house and not going anywhere. It
Mhm.
kind of is a little bit, if you were to go back to Night of the Living Dead, Ben wants to be upstairs, Cooper wants to be downstairs. So you are in that scenario in which two people have warring ideas about what they should do. However, Brayker has a lot of experience, and we're about to find out that he has more experience than even his age would suggest.
Back in the day, when you could be forgiven for thinking that he was alive in biblical times. He was not alive in biblical times. And the actor does look quite different. But when you see the flashback when they're, hammering nails and or whatever, he gets this flashback of like hammering nails into Jesus. You would think that it's his memory. It's not exactly. But it shows the origin of this trinket, this key that is a bottle. It's a bottle key, like a bottle key, like you have, yeah, full of blood, because that's what you do. I don't know if there's any other like religious artifact that resembles this sort of blood key thing. I mean, you could say that the blood itself is the key, perhaps, but like it is sort of vaguely key shaped, but whatever. Anyway, so it is full of blood from biblical times. And it was demons haunting the mount where the three crosses were erected, where Jesus was pilloried. And his blood is what is filling it. So we do have that provenance of this being like Jesus blood. I did not know this was a power of Jesus blood, that you could like draw glowing red lines around doors with it. That's cool though. I mean, it's much better than having his body spread out across centuries for people to eat. I mean, it's a little less macabre and a lot more useful than that. But yeah, so that's how old this chase has been going on, or how long this chase has been going on.
Yeah, and you can't underestimate the power of Jesus' blood. When Longinus stabbed Christ in the torso to make sure that he is dead, that became the spear of destiny, the mythical, powerful religious artifact.
Which you may remember from other horror movies. There's a whole bunch of them, and Warlock.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's a classic when you are using religious iconography. But that would imply that at the very least, the Spear of Destiny didn't get its power from stabbing Christ, it got its power from getting gushed by Christ blood. This seems to be like Jesus' blood gives you unspeakable and holy powers, up to and including sealing doors away from demons. This makes a kind of strange sense because demons being blocked from crossing thresholds is deeply rooted in a lot of belief systems about demons and dark entities in general. Even some folksy uses of salt, for example, to repel evil spirits. Creating yourself shielding from dark spirits, evil spirits, whatever have you, is well established. They just decided to do a bottle key and make it Christ blood. But it's not just Christ blood, because it actually holds the blood of a line of these demon knights that go
Mhm.
throughout the ages, each one branded with a series of stars on their palm, each one destined to die, each one destined to give their blood to the key, to refill it anew, to continue on their fight against the dark forces for another generation. And they seem to keep the memories, or at least some memories, of each previous user. Brayker himself got this bottle all the way back in World War II. And even in 1995, World War II was a long enough time ago that Brayker doesn't exactly look like a man who would have served.
No, he's got a certain level of immortality bestowed upon him with his tattooed hand. And yeah, he sums it up basically at first to I'm just an old man running out of time. And that is what speaks volumes because we get the feeling like he does that he's nearing the end of this time on earth. And as these visions that show us the origin of the bottle key full of demon knight blood, with Christ being the original demon knight for whatever reason, because I don't specifically remember him battling a demon. I remember him having a conversation with Lucifer on the mount, but I don't remember them battling really. But
Maybe it was a battle of wits.
it was it definitely was a battle of wits, and they came to a stalemate, if you can believe that. You get the sense that his time here is going to be done. And I do like this setup where they have the upstairs and downstairs because he sealed it off. We start thinking, he's going to run low on blood pretty soon. He's sealing a lot of doors and windows, and this place is nothing but fucking doors and windows. And now he's sealed off an entire downstairs with what has to be a dwindling supply of demon knight blood. But it also gives us that great lower stage and upper stage look of this place because it's sort of set up in a way like the Ghostbusters office where there's like a four area and the foyer is like a set like one sunken living room level lower than everything else, and there's two sides to this building, two wings if you will, and they're trapped all up in one side. That's kind of cool. It makes for a very cool, a little bit of stairs to the stage presence of this area where the rest of the movie mostly plays out. So at least it's a visually interesting place, and we can see a lot of the demons themselves just milling about looking for like that one little corner where they can breach where the other people are. So I really did enjoy that. We do have Roach, who is now intent again on getting out of there.
He is, and there seems to be a certain level of camaraderie that everyone is experiencing where they're patrolling essentially to make sure that no one is trying to get in. you have old Willie, who was introduced to us, by the way, as kind of like a goofy drunk character, but I feel like this scenario has gotten him sobered up fairly quickly. We have the other officer who is just the deputy, and it's funny because Irene is bossing him around. Like, you kind of forget that he's even a cop, but he is the access to the only other gun that they have, because he has his own. The sheriff, his boss, is dead, and Brayker took that gun. But you've also got to figure that they're running low on ammunition, because it takes multiple shots, and I don't blame them. Getting a clean shot in a demon's eyes while it's moving, while it doesn't want to die, I can only imagine that's not good. They use other things. It doesn't have to be bullets. It could just literally be anything, a knife, any sort of implement. They use deer horns later on. So it does work. But we are going to see this demon, this collector, attempt to seduce each one of these characters in their own individual way. And the most music video of them all is when he tries to seduce Jada Pinkett's character. This whole sequence is a mind fuck, man. It's weird.
It's interesting in that at this time in Jada Pinkett, the actress's life, she was, I guess, probably dating Will Smith, and also really close friends and just post dating Tupac. So this sort of fits with her as the actress that we know at the time, more so than the person who was like hired to be the cleaner or something. Irene's like, I don't know if they're necessarily blood relation, but like Irene had taken her in when she had nowhere else to go. So she's sort of like street adjacent. So I don't know if this is like supposed to be hinging onto her hip hop dreams, but it is very much like a music video. I liked it quite a bit. And this is like not the only time that we delve into these glamour portions that are almost like a dream sequence that are filmed very different, and a very interesting experiment for these filmmakers.
It is really important to note that her character is actually on work release from prison.
Oh, is that it? Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, so that's what Irene is doing. So I've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah.
So if you were to blink, you'd miss it. Irene delivers a couple of lines towards the beginning of the film when Brayker gets. Why she would tell him this is like she won't clean the oven, and so she's like, well, it's, you give someone a work release program and do them a favor, and they won't even clean the oven. Man, I've stuck my neck out. Like, it's wild. I was like, why are you telling him all of this? Like, you don't even, you think his name is Mr. Smith. Like,
yeah.
It's
which
like
is cute, isn't it?
It's like a mom trying to embarrass their kid. Like, oh, could you go take the laundry downstairs? Oh, you're not going to do it? Well, Jesus Christ, you wet the bed till you were 13 years old, and now you won't take the laundry down. I washed all those piss pajamas. Like, it'd be like, what? Why are you telling a strange man this fucking information? But the reason why it's the patrolling area is simple, because she does manage to reject the collector's proposal, and that's where she re-enters the group, and she is haunted by this. But this will come into play later, and I wonder really if this is what starts the collector on his specific intrigue of her character, because everyone else gets seduced so fucking easily.
Except Irene. Irene does push back pretty abruptly,
yeah.
But maybe she's not his type.
Well, perhaps not, but she does. I love Irene in this film. It should be noted that, by the way, during the Caroline fiasco in which she was possessed and Wally was killed, Irene also lost her arm, and it's graphic. Like, you can feel the pain as she is dealing with that, and it's not one of those things immediately. It does kind of become this later, but it is one of these things that immediately she is dealing with the pain. They're trying to stop the bleeding. They're trying to do a tourniquet on her. She is chugging back alcohol to numb the pain. And then eventually it just kind of becomes, and we're done with that. And now she just has one arm, and it may as well be like she always only had one arm, because she never really acknowledges that she's in any pain or discomfort. It's probably pure adrenaline, but they are going to explore the house further. They're going to find Uncle Willie sitting upstairs in what we assume is Wally's room. And this sequence is fucking wild because you're meant to connect a lot of dots. It's like Wally wants to get revenge for Cordelia against the post office. And he has a stockpile of weapons, but no ammunition. But he has a lot. He's got like Uzis. And to me,
and grenades.
And this kind of brings me to one of my biggest problems with this movie. And, I could take all the nostalgia down and little Chibi Wes running around pretending he's a demon. Let's put that in a box. And let's put that box in the closet. I'm going to shut the door because I'm going to say some mean things.
Oh,
this fucking plot is so dumb that one of the problems is this movie has a brisk 92-minute runtime. Now, subtract the Crypt Keeper part at the beginning, including the fake scenario that we realize is directing. Now, let's cut out the sandwich side of the end credits, okay? And the end sequence with the Crypt Keeper. Cut all that out. This movie is like an hour and 15 minutes long. By the time the demons start doing stuff and you have all of the actual main body of the story happening, you have less than an hour to actually have the story that you were trying to tell. And there's too many goddamn characters. And so everyone is just such a caricature, and they're trying to put in bits of characterization. They're trying to have moments between conversation, moments between characters where they're trying to figure out a plan. Roach is trying to get other people on his side Roach has 2 conversations trying to convince 2 different people to betray Brayker in less than 5 minutes. The scene just bleeds into the next one. And the second somebody has the hint of not being interested, he's on to the next thing. We got to talk to this guy. And just less of the nonsense, because it's fun to watch all the demons fight and it's fun to watch all these fucking special effects. But these characters are so paper thin. Not that they need to be super in depth, but I'm just saying now, as a man in his 40s watching this movie, woof. And the fact that you couldn't, why is Jada Pinkett here? One line they gave to why she's there, right? It's not enough.
I think that it is sort of enough, but I missed that particular line. We missed the line, or you could miss the line, that this used to be a church, to explain a lot. It's one line. If we didn't have a whole bunch of flashbacks graphically showing us biblical times or army maneuvers where he had the blood and the key bottle bestowed upon him and getting his tattoo on his hand, if we didn't get all that, we basically get one line. I would have actually, as much as I do enjoy the look of all of these, what I'm calling the glamour sequences, because they're not dream sequences, but it's the closest thing where the people are sucked into the world of the collector. I would have done with less of that and more of the Wally story, because I'm very intrigued with how he was going to go postal, quote unquote, without ammo. Maybe he had ammo in a different spot. I don't know. I would have liked to see more of his unrequited love fester and turn into something dark. I wanted to know how much Cordelia knew of this plan or was involved in it. I'm very interested in this weird little bookended story that is injected in, however paper thin it is, because I do agree that all of these characters are extremely paper thin. I wanted more of Roach. Now, another film that's very different, that has a fairly big cast with a lot of people who could be conceived as paper thin, is The Crow. We have T-Bird's whole gang of hoodlums.
Yeah.
We get a few lines describing each of them, but they do such better heavy lifting with those lines. They really do flesh out those characters in the very few lines that some of them have. That works so much better. I mean, I wish they could have done something like that instead of one or two throwaway lines. do something more with their demeanor, do something more with interactions between other characters, because it is a very similar group of people. Not that they're similar to T-Birds gang and the Crow and like on a surface level, but the amount of screen time they have, what we're supposed to extrapolate from their character in those few lines, and the sort of amount of screen time that we spend with them. We just, I don't know, we spend a lot more time watching them run through tunnels or stand around screaming while people are getting their arms chopped off or whatever. They're not like doing anything or saying anything.
Yeah, it's almost as chaotic and frenzied as the sequence of From Dusk Till Dawn. If you cut out
Mhm.
the whole first part of the movie and it's just the vampire sequence, it would
Yeah.
be that truncated and chaotic where I just am saying that the pacing, it's exciting, it's fun to watch. Billy Zane is so goddamn good. But that's what I'm saying is he all but eliminates, to me personally, any of the other characterization, and it makes certain things seem less profound,
Mhm.
and it really taints a little bit of my enjoyment from a very critical point. Like, I didn't want to just come at this movie with all love and rose colored sunshines. I wanted to be honest about some of the shortcomings for this movie. It really has a lot of interesting ideas. It just doesn't deliver
Mhm.
on a lot of those promises. And even the explanation for what is going on here, this long line of demon knights and what that must be like. We only get snippets of what he's talking about, and up to and including just quoting some of the most famous parts of the Bible. And people just kind of moving on immediately from that, because we have another dream sequence to get to, because after they shoo away Uncle Willie, we get to what I think might be the most famous sequence from this movie. What do you say for if you'd like a long hard one,
Y-
Lydia?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be famous only because it's got that Playboy Mansion sort of feel to it and high rolling um boobies. There's so much boobies, so much boobies.
It's Billy Zane seems to be doing his best like Hunter Thompson impression to me.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes across, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, up to and including the big sunglasses and the cigarette and all that. But Playboy Mansion is such a good call. I didn't even think about that very obvious comparison.
That's what it feels like to me. While, where else could a man be treated like gold despite, his being old or being like not dressed for the occasion or maybe not having a lot of money and being an alcoholic and being surrounded by this bevy of buxom beauties who have just booped breastily up to him and are surrounding him and ushering him toward the, I don't know, blackjack table, I suppose. And just like ushering him to drink and filling up glasses with alcohol and, like, urging him to drink, like, "Drink more, drink more." It's weird. Where else could that sort of lifestyle be normal other than somewhere where Donald Trump lives, I suppose? Epstein Island, maybe, to get really horrible about it, but, yeah, Playboy mansions, Playboy clubs, little bunny clubs, or whatever, where this sort of behavior and these specific echelon of women. These aren't strip club girls. These are hostesses, with perfect bodies. Like they're really, really good looking women with very toned and taut. They're buxom. They're very buxom. But
Hmm.
it's such a off-putting scene. And like before we were recording, I'd even said like being my age at about 20 years old when I did watch this particular film, that's the sort of thing that turned me right off of it because it was a very, very misogynistic lens to be putting the particular women that they were choosing and the amount of them around the man is just, catering to a specific story that I didn't want any part of. But it is a very high production value, and it's so very Beetlejuice, more like Beetlejuice cartoon too, but where he can glamorize people and have them live in this little fantasy land of his making for a moment to trick them into something. And I do like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting when they cut out to what Danny is seeing Uncle Willie just sort of like, "Oh my god," it makes it actually pretty creepy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, "That's effective. That's really effective." And I kind of wish that they had done it more, but maybe less is more in this situation. Not with this particular scenario, but I kind of wish that they demonstrated a couple of times that people are just hallucinating completely and they're
Yeah.
standing in a room that none of this is happening in.
Yeah, they're not taken to this other place.
Precisely, it's all in their mind's eye. And I think that this works out really well. It's interesting that they keep asking if he wants a long, hard one, because I'd be like, "Am
Yeah.
I not supposed to be giving you a long, hard one?" But it's not relevant
Maybe
because
he can't get a long, hard one, and that's what they're not saying is that he has impotent problems, right? Like middle-aged man problems, and he can't get a long, hard one.
hey, we've all been
Yeah.
there, and those bottles are huge. So I can't quite figure out if it's liquor or if it's beer. It kind of comes off as whiskey, but it also the bottle looks like a Colt 45. So I'm not entirely sure, but I digress. What's important is he gets the whammy put on him. And when Brayker and Jalen, you have them enter this room and we have Dick Miller in all his glory. He's got glowing eyes and they need to save Danny and defeat Dick Miller. And this is the most deadite that they behave because typically speaking, when people get possessed by these demons, they just growl and they roar and they split apart and they're not trying to do anything to fool you. Whereas I consider deadites very tricky. They
Yeah.
do the thing where they try to make you think that maybe they're not possessed and don't hurt me. I'm old Uncle Willie. And he does that in this sequence to keep Jada Pinkett's character from stabbing him in the eyes because she has a knife.
Mhm, and Danny has snapped out of his aloofness, like, he sort of vacillates between being super aloof and not, so he's sort of with it here, and he mans up, and he sees what he could use to poke out Uncle Willie's eyes, and that is deer antlers. As you'd mentioned before, anything can work on these to release their soul. I'd like to think that it would release their soul and they'd be okay, their corporeal body would be okay, however blinded, but I really I would like to think the people could recover, but no. I mean, those tines are going into his brain and he is definitely done. I wish I could have seen what happened to his parents. Did he just cower in a corner while his parents were turned into these deadite type demons? Because they are different than the demons that are stalking the basement.
I would assume he's probably just reading his Tales from the Crypt comic that he
Yeah.
keeps close by at all times and can't really seem to be bothered to do anything else except for when Uncle Willie's decapitated head is well in needing of its eyes poked out. But we forgot about somebody, Lids, because all while this is going on, everyone is distracted. People, Irene, are like reading letters and they're stocking up, getting ammunition for whatever guns they can find. But unfortunately, there's no ammunition. And while all this is going on, who is ready to cut a deal but old Roach?
I like this scene. I think it's very and we know where it's going. I mean, you don't make a deal with the devil and live to tell the tale. It just doesn't work like that. And I guess Roach missed that day in Sunday school because it's not may not be the devil we're dealing with here, but it's basically an agent of him, cut of the same cloth. He stole the bottle from Breaker quite a while ago, actually.
Yes, and just in case you didn't catch that sequence, they're going to start the sequence with him holding the bottle and he's just sort of walking down. I like how when he goes towards the stairs, the demons immediately come upstairs and who trots below them? But of course, the collector himself. And Billy Zane is in his element here. This conversation is so fun. His body language is so loose. He is the used car salesman that's got just the deal for you. And basically, it's, I want to get out of here. I don't even want anything. I just want to leave. You don't need to give me eternal youth. I don't need a long, hard one. I don't need any big titty bimbos. I don't need any of that silly stuff. What I need is to leave. It's the thing that I've wanted this entire time. And if all you want is this stupid key and to bring hell on earth, I don't care. And you're not such a bad guy. Well, you're not such a bad guy yourself. And the way they shake their hands. And of course, he double crosses him immediately. Hey, Roach, one more thing. I lied. And Roach is torn asunder by these demons. And this sequence that comes up immediately after this, I can't tell you how many times my brain has just said this randomly, but come on out, everybody, it's time to play. And then he gets an arrow through his eye, or not, and then he falls backwards. This kind of comedic timing, I'm sure it's not great for people who don't like comedy, but for me, this whole sequence is so well done. And this entire performance that Billy Zane is giving is such a masterclass in physical comedy and also portraying character through dialogue and body motion. He can't deliver these lines in an effective way without all of the physical acting that he's doing on top of it. And then to just come off as like a wily coyote arrow through the head, and he's just going to drop through a thing and do a one-liner to himself as he's dropping. This is when things really break bad. But the problem, Liz, is we don't have a lot of time and we got too many characters.
That's okay. We're going to start picking them off, what's left of them anyway. Although, we do end up with a pretty good clutch of people left over at the end, it seems to me. But Danny, who's been absorbed in his Tales from the Crypt comic, which is one thing I always wished for the show to be more like Creep Show and have more interstitial with the comic or start and end with a frame from the comic. We get a very cool portion here where Danny is obsessed with his comic of Tales from the Crypt, which is mirroring the storyline that we're watching right now. It shows scenes of uh, Geraldine being terrified. It shows scenes of Uncle Willie being possessed. It shows the double crossing that has gone on between Roach. Just as he's flipping the pages, we see this, that he's been reading this story all along. I'm like, oh my God, kid, why couldn't you give us a hint to how this is going to end? But it doesn't matter because he also sees in there that he is about to get possessed. And within seconds, that happens. And I like the creature that he turns into because, as far as I think that the people that get possessed by demons are a little bit benign, like they don't seem to have a lot of powers. They're more easily foiled than the demons downstairs by getting their eyes poked out. This is like uber demon. Danny's like way bigger and more menacing and monstrous, isn't he?
It's like his whole bottom jaw and his chest connect into one big, long, gnarled, toothy, whip-like venom tongue that does serious damage to Brayker. Now, before this fight between Danny, Brayker, and Geraldine happen, we need to get rid of Irene and the deputy. This sequence is so weird to me because I love a good self-sacrifice. I
Mhm.
love when people do that type of stuff. I love heroism, but it's not sold to me in a way that I understand why they both needed to kill themselves. And I'm gonna take you to a sequence that does this perfectly, which we're gonna go talk about aliens. But believe it or not, it's been a while since
Mhm.
we've brought up, and we're gonna talk about Vasquez in the vent with I think Carter or whatever. And so the two of them out of ammo, surrounded by xenomorphs. They have one explosive. You always were an asshole, Gorman. Dun, 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 and they explode. They're trapped. They needed to do it self-sacrificing. May as well take as many with them as we possibly can. Irene is not in this scenario. There's no reason why the grenades needed to be down there with her. She could have just thrown the bandolier and they all could have gone upstairs. I just don't understand why they needed to do it aside from eliminating characters, because they're just standing in an open hallway like, here it comes, supper time. It's cool. Irene did get tempted earlier by the collector to get a new arm, and she puts the stump towards him, and that's me giving you the finger. And it's very funny. I mean, the collector's wearing big sunglasses. It's good stuff. But yes, now when we see Danny in his monstrous form, there's only the three of them left. Now Danny has become a creature. Now they have used the last of the blood lids, because this guy's dropping blood like it's going out of style. And he first puts the drop of blood on Jada Pinkett's character's hand, looking at it. And then she looks at him strangely, and then she dabs her finger into it, seals the window. It's a good thing they do that, because this whole time Brayker is going to inform us, before Danny becomes monstrous, that this has all been leading up to meeting her. This is why he's here, because he is running out of time. The stars on his palm have aligned, and Danny is the instrument of his death, to die from a long, looks like he's in Hanson. He kills this demon knight, although the collector is going to take credit for it somehow. But this demon does it. She does toss Danny's ass out of the window, and he explodes. They blow up a kid in this graphically.
Quite graphically. Well, although he is a demon crossing a blood-sealed door or egress. So I guess you could say it wasn't a kid anymore, it was a demon. But yeah, they do blow him up quite graphically. And they have him kill somebody too, because he kills Uncle Willie's possessed form quite graphically. So like, yeah, Danny's no innocent, even though he does just sit there reading comic books aloofly or watch his parents die, because we don't know what went on in the mine shaft. But yeah, have you noticed through this thing, you had mentioned a Goonie sound when the collector punches through the cop's head. There's another Goonie sound throughout this whole film, and we're not saved from it when the tattoo shows up on Jada Pinkett's hand. It's like a weird bobcat sound. And this bobcat sound prevails with a lot of the demons make this weird bobcat sound from time to time. Danny makes this bobcat sound a couple times while he's dying. And it happens whenever Brayker looks at his hand for some reason. I mean, did you ever, while you were running around your house as a 10-year-old kid, emulating the collector or demons, did you ever make the bobcat sound?
No, I never did. And it's stupid. Like, let's just be real. It's a sound effect that doesn't make any sense. I can understand if you're using it for the demons, even though I would ask people while making these movies to at least try to pitch down or pitch up or reverse your animal sounds, combine them with something else, do something.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the chimp noises in the Evil Dead 2. It's just so distracting. Right? Or the, like in Innocent Blood, like like that, just ridiculous. Like, I'm a vampire. And you're like,
jaguar sounds.
Yeah, it's like, no, you're a jaguar, actually. That's a jaguar noise. I know that. I'm a human being that lives on planet Earth with other animals. Like, I know what animals sound like. I know what a chimp sounds like. So it's very stupid. It's very distracting, and it's not scary. So it kind of fails on every conceivable level. And even just like, what's the logic here? Why does that sound happen with the stars? Is it just to, what? Are you trying to say that if the demons make the same noise as the stars moving, is the implication that it's the same kind of magic that is making this happen? That doesn't make any sense, because it's supposed to be holy magic from what I understand, and certainly how it's demonstrated. But no, it's goofy. There's a lot of things. Even when Danny is morphing into this demon, his eyes are doing like this googly eyed, like spinning around thing. I think that there's just these moments where, oh, this might be too horrific. Can we make it look stupid? Can we just do a little something to make it like,
Mhm.
now we're kind of joking? Like, is it kind of that?
That would make a lot of sense to make it a little more Goonie, a little more aligned with the cartoon, because you can't forget they probably had a real hot cash injection once that cartoon hit the airwaves. So that's a lot of who this movie was made for, and they can't forget that as much as it's made for horror fans, who are the people who brought us Tales from the Crypt, right, in the first place. Especially literary horror fans who want real dyed-in-the-wool horror, right? So there needs to be some of that. There's some contradictions in this film here and there, like, well, how are you supposed to go to heaven if you're an agent of Christ to a certain extent with a tattoo? I always understood that you had to have a pure body to a certain extent. Like tattoos would keep you from getting into heaven, from what I understood. So the tattoos are just weird. The fact that the tattoos move around is kind of demonic, if you ask me, but they never explained. Brayker wanted to wait for morning, which is happening soon. Why? What happens in the morning? Do the demons have no power in the morning? They only like have potent power at night? Well, then if they have potent power at night, you should have diminished power at night. So how come you're so powerful? Like, it's just a lot of little things that make no sense.
That's why Evil Dead taught us dead before dawn. The light wards away the forces of darkness. I'm all right with that. It doesn't really, I don't bump into that necessarily, but I do think that they're going to throw out some more rules in this next section, and that's where Billy Zane has the great, like, who comes up with these rules? And I think that might be a subtle
My
wink
favorite.
to, because we don't know, by the way, we don't know what's happened to the collector, because the last time we saw him, well, he got an arrow through his eye, and in theory that should kill him. It kills all the other demons. He does show up now, and he has this moment. I wish the adult in me, the kid doesn't care, the adult in me wishes that when the collector comes in, sees Brayker dead after he has had this pained conversation with Jada Pinkett's character about how it's her, it was always supposed to be her. You have to go on with this, use my blood, fill this vessel, and you are going to be on the run. You're going to live a difficult life, but you have to be able to do this. It was always destined to be you. You have killed a demon, which is your last test. The test before that was able to reject the seduction of the collector, a high-level demon. You have the fortitude. You have the skills. You can do this. And then he dies, as he must, as everyone before him has, doing this line of work. You may get a few years, you may get a few decades, you may get centuries. We don't know. But at the very least, when it's your time, you will have to do what he has now done, given his life, much like Christ dying for us. So too do these demon knights have to die for us and move forward. So when Billy Zane, the collector, comes in and sits on this small chair, beforehand, she had closed his eyes, the classic, he died with his eyes open, she closes them. He comes up and he opens the eyes, and I just wish there was a little bit more. This was his foe. Now, the collector has a very dim view of humans in general. He believes himself to be a superior demonic force. He's very powerful. He's presumably very ancient. So he has been down this road before, but you would assume that he had been chasing Brayker for a long time, perhaps years. We don't really know. And so I wish there was just a little bit more dialogue. I know it would just be the collector tough talking a corpse, but I wish that there was just something more there. But we don't have time for that, because we need to get to this very interesting sequence in which Jada Pinkett's character is going to be using blood in inventive ways, first as a personal shield.
I like the scene quite a lot too. Not only because it's just kind of interesting and sexy looking, and it's a departure, and it's quick thinking on her part. I like that at first the collector's a little bit taken aback because his suggestion is just pour the blood out. Like, save yourself from years of running. Just give me the thing. Pour the blood out. It's fine. And it seems almost in a way that she has sort of done that. She's poured it all over herself because that keeps her absolutely immune. She can always get more from where that came from because she's got a whole body pumping blood right here that is full of demon knight blood, so she can just fill it up at the source really easily here, which is very handy. But yeah, she has rendered herself unable to be touched by him entirely. She is a weapon entirely. So if she were to give him a nice old bear hug, what, he would explode in flames or something, right? I'd like to think. But he is a step ahead of her and attacks her with a shower curtain, which is really the only thing he could do, I guess, at this point.
He does try to convince her. He becomes like the Fonz. He's like, I la 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 la
Which is
la
such a
la.
weird scene.
It's very weird, but I think he's going for broke here because he doesn't really know. I don't know. Like there's something just there's something. It's weird to me because it's like, is he in love with her because it's a demon knight has never been a woman before and he's like extremely heterosexual, which is weird for a demon, but whatever. But like, or is it like something about, well, you rejected me? I was like, well, you've known other demon knights. They would have rejected any sort of
They've all
seduction.
rejected you.
Yeah. So like, what is it specifically about her? Does he think this is going to work? I don't know. I think it's just another way to do more fun stuff. And it almost seems like it was thought of on the day because this whole like, la, la, do you think you could la, la, la? It's just, this is the most openly comedic, but very dated type of thing. But it's funny. It's interesting. But he is going to douse her in water and then he's going to wrap her up again in that shower curtain by like also breaking her hand. He gets pretty pissed because she uses the key to stab him in the eye after
Which
the
is
blood.
all that she could do at that point, because it is still a weapon. Even though it doesn't have blood in it, it will burn his flesh. It will maim him. It will, yeah, it does a lot of damage just all on its own.
And he is going to toss away his big sunglasses. They look like Oakleys to me, but he's like, I liked those. And then they're going to have a bit of a tango, a bit of a dance sequence. Now, here's one thing about this movie that I wish they didn't show, is they actually show her drinking the blood quickly as he has taken the key away from her and put her in that case. But before he does, she quickly puts a whole bunch of the blood in her mouth. And so when he drags her downstairs after seemingly breaking her hand, and then he starts this whole dance sequence about how they could be together and it would be great. We could, all this kind of stuff. And he pulls the love shit. We know that she has all that blood in her mouth. I wish it was a surprise. Did they feel like we needed to physically see her do it? Otherwise, would people say, well, how did that happen? That doesn't make any sense.
I think so. If we didn't know that she had blood in her mouth, her facial expressions would seem awfully awkward because she's visibly holding the blood in her mouth to the point that he should say, what have you got in your mouth? Because of the way that she's acting.
He has a couple of stupid moments where he says, look at you, covered in blood. You must be in exquisite pain. Are you telling me that you can't tell that she's not wounded? She's just covered in blood. Why would she be in exquisite pain? For all you know, it could be, and it is, Brayker's blood. So, so that was weird. And yes, you're right. She's clearly holding like something in her mouth,
kind of thing. And
it's like so, like you would be able to tell, like if this was a child, you would say, like, what do you got in your mouth? It would be, it would be that. And the last moments of his seduction isn't working. And so if he can't have her soul, he'll simply take her heart. And they're point blank, and she uses this opportunity to just spit all that blood in his face. And coming into direct contact with this blood, we've kind of seen it before through the key, and then once when he grabbed his wrist, it did burn and it does cause pain.
Mhm.
But this is a whole other ballgame because he is splattered in the face with this blood and he begins to straight up melt.
Mhm. And grow wings and turn into the demon and turn into something like the vampire from Fright Night. It's kind of glorious. You know, you got the flames, you got the demon wings, you got the screeching, the jaguar sounds. I mean, it's a whole thing, and
Yeah.
very effective and believable too. Like that he has finally shed his form through pain and being dragged back to hell.
It kind of reminds me of the way that the demon looks a little bit by Night of the Demons. Like when you
Mhm.
see it in the mirror, when you see it blowing up with the house and shit like that, it kind of reminds me of that. Maybe a little bit of the devil from Tales from the Hood. It's evocative of a lot of things. And this sequence causes him to explode. And he explodes and the whole fucking place explodes.
It's a miracle she makes it out alive. Like, I guess that being a demon knight grants you a certain amount of immunity and a certain amount of bulletproofedness.
That's true because we see as the explosion fades, she is coated in that red glow and that red glow fades. So at the very least, we can see that yes, she either threw the blood, but that had been washed off. So almost as if a divine protection, which also seems to be the color red.
Which is counterintuitive. Isn't that supposed to be white or blue?
Yeah, maybe, but it works for me. And we see now that she is, because she's been in her underwear this entire sequence. So like,
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Which is kind of, in line with Alien. We've got a underwear clad woman besting everybody. And I guess it is the color. It's going to be that glowing red because it is the blood, right? She's made of it now. She can collect a whole bunch more because she has a full bottle of blood now. So she's pretty much indestructible, right?
Yeah, she basically loads up on Brayker like he's a fucking blood gas station.
Mhm.
And then she heads off onto a Greyhound. This sequence has also really stuck out in my mind over the years because as she enters the bus, she just takes a moment to dab a little bit of that blood onto the entrance of the bus. And the next bus stop, we see a very cool looking guy. He's got the black hat, the black coat, the black shades, and a briefcase. And he says, "No, it's okay. I'll get the next one." And that scene has stuck out in my mind also for years. And I
I think he
really,
ends up in Haddonfield, actually, come to think of it.
maybe, but you see, she is on her next quest, her next wandering. She is going to wander the globe, I assume, like Cain, and just look for demons and trouble. Although it's actually kind of remarkable because if you were to think, so you had one big ass fucking demon that was there hunting down Brayker, the collector, and then one bus stop away from where she was, you encounter another would presume as a high level demon, and it makes you wonder, wait, how many fucking demons are on Earth right now?
Oh, untold amounts. They just dispatch a new one whenever there's a keeper of the bottle running around. Or how many other trinkets are there full of demon blood of some sort, or Jesus blood, that they are trying to gather and protect? I think he made it out like there was 5 or 6 other bottles out there because it's not the only one.
Maybe. I don't, yeah. And honestly, the thing that I love is that demon, whoever he is, gives her a knowing look. I really wanted to point out that Jada Pinkett's performance throughout this film is excellent. She's really good.
Mhm.
And you can see how she is going to become such a celebrated actress. She was only 23 years old when she did this role. So she's very, very young, but so much talent. And a lot of people point out the fact that this is one of the few horror films of this era where we had a final girl who was also Black. And I think that it's something that even when I was growing up, I didn't like when somebody pointed that out to me for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, that's very fascinating. And and it's great that, like, all in all, I had some minor complaints about this movie, which is just picky ass shit, because I don't want to have too much effusive praise on a movie, because sometimes I feel like my nostalgia blinders are on, and I want to be fair to point out flaws, but they're minor flaws. The cast is great, and we're not out of here yet, because our old pal, the Crypt Keeper, is back, and we are going to his big screamier.
Oh, he loves scarnations, which it's just a little too much for me, but it's
It's a
cute to
lot.
see him again. Like I said, I wish there would have been an interstitial, just a little like, hey, Kitty's just checking in. Do you think so-and-so's gonna win? Kind of thing to be in the middle of the show. That would have been really cool. So I while I missed him, it is just goony and schlocky as
Yes.
usual to have him
Yes.
back.
Yes, and there's no denying it. It's very silly. I also don't really get the last pun. That's entertainment. I was like, I don't get that. Really? I'm not that bright. But here's the interesting thing. Lids. We have the Crypt Keeper. He got his final cut, which is decapitated in a little basket. And it's very funny. And
Cute.
and then we get our credits. And this brings us to a post-credit sequence. If you watched all the way to the end credits, the Crypt Keeper shows up and lets you know that we got another movie coming up, Deadline, a title that never got anywhere.
No, but I had to ask Chris about it, and it seems to him that it would be a working title for a Bordello of Blood.
Totally. This was always envisioned to be a trilogy. The Bordello of Blood unfortunately sank that prospect, but they did kind of get their jollies when Ritual was released in 2002, which was supposed to be the Tales from the Crypt threequel. And at least on the DVD release, they brought the Crypt Keeper in to introduce the movie. So they did kind of get it. But as far as the big glitzy, glamored Hollywood movies, it was sunk by Bordello of Blood, which undeniably is a weaker entry. And I do view Demon Knight as really the best of the bunch. Ritual is okay. It's not exactly very memorable. And I just think that it's so fascinating that the popularity of Tales from the Crypt burned hot and fast. And by the time Bordello of Blood came out, very shortly after, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years later, I think, or maybe a couple, it was 1998, I think, or maybe 97, I can't remember. But when that movie came out, that was it. And that was where, okay, fine, it tanked, like badly tanked. So now it kind of remains as this relic. And I think that it's really only the horror diehards that really hold this series, because the excitement around this franchise going to streaming for the first time. I had no idea when Shudder announced it. I saw all these horror influencers coming out of the woodwork being like, this is the first time ever it's been streaming anywhere. Oh, I had no idea. I see that box set literally everywhere. You could probably see it at Sunrise Video right now. And so it didn't really seem like something that was out of print. And also, I had no interest in revisiting it. I eventually did, but for a kid that was so obsessed with the Crypt Keeper and who was obsessed with this movie, it went away. It went away and other things took its place. I just find it interesting how it just seemed so big for a very brief moment of time. Very brief, just a few years.
It did, and it seems like it remained in syndication, much like the old comics in Vault of Horror and Eerie and Creepy. All of those comics you can still get your hands on. And we were talking about this previously, how I'm like, I would like to get some of these, and there's a great omnibus collection. You can have caught a lot of the Tales from the Crypt show and even the cartoon to this day on Global or Nick at Night or whatever. Like, I don't know, it's just being aired as sort of a mainstay of cable alongside The Simpsons and every other show that never goes away sort of thing, even though The Simpsons is still in production. So I shouldn't lump The Simpsons in with all of that. But like, it never really went anywhere, but it did fall out of favor. And I remember thinking Bordello of Blood wasn't so bad as a product of its time. And maybe at the time I would have, if I watched it when it came out, it would have turned me off even more so just from its nature. Because like all the titties in this one weren't my favorite things. And it's the reason I didn't really take to this film when it came out, aside from the comedy nature. Maybe it had overstayed its welcome even by that point. So to stay in the vein of Dead Easy, which I wish they would have had Bordello of Blood, aka Dead Easy, so we would have known that this wasn't like a fluke, but maybe it was. I don't know. Yeah, it did really like disappear except for, 9 p.m. time slot fillers. That's really the only place that I ever saw this show, because I didn't watch all of the other Tales from the Crypt when it originally aired. I've only seen 2 or 3 episodes ever. So I'm happy it's streaming because I get to catch up on it and get to see that it really was way more horror and really more in line with those serial horror programs of the time and the time before it than it was in line with this film.
Yeah, it really was. And it was even more in line with the 1970s movie, because they took all of those sequences and they turned them into episodes. So it's it really goes to show you that even that had a lasting effect. Here's a fun fact. The one time when I was like maybe 10 years old or something like that, I had a seizure and I was actually watching Tales from the Crypt when it happened. And so there was one episode that I remember it ended and I don't remember anything because I had a seizure. And I remember my dad racing in because he was asleep and my mom had stayed up late with me. So that's really crazy. But I really appreciate doing this film. It's fun to get one of these kind of quintessential childhood horror films done for the show. Don't worry, I got other movies that I was obsessed with as a wee lad. So we got lots more of those to go. And speaking of that, what do we got next for him?
Coming up next, we have another horror comedy, but one that I appreciate maybe on a little bit deeper level, 967 Evil. And we had watched that not long ago here, and it was really nice to revisit it. And I thought if we're going to be doing some a little more lighthearted comedy, and I want to go back in time, get more splattery with the splatter pictures, it seemed like a really good fit. And, maybe we will do Bordello of Blood someday, but this seems more fun to me.
By the way, Bordello of Blood, I looked it up just now, 1996, a year. That might be part of the problem. They wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and it was ice cold. But yes, I'm excited to do 976 Evil. It's been a minute since I've seen that. I'll bust out my old DVD of the movie. I don't have like a big kick-ass version of it, but I do have it on DVD. Hopefully it's streaming somewhere if somebody wants to watch it as well. But it'll be fun to get a little wet, a little wild, a little silly with it. And I think this was a good way to kind of break that seriousness, because we were really into the serious stuff for a while, like a little bit more lengthy of a time in the serious stuff than I thought we were.
Yes, no, it's true. And it wasn't like I was worried that we're on like getting on a downer, because there's nothing wrong with that. We can watch a whole bunch of A24 things, but it's like for a while we were getting into almost like Blumhousian kind of a modern horror for a bit. We did a couple like new releases kind of things. So like it's fun to sort of experiment, but I think that we're both more comfortable in the 80s and 90s, especially like in the 90s, a lot of people saying that wasn't a good decade for horror, and we proved them wrong over and over and over again. Ever since last Stephen King-a-Palooza, I think we've stayed into sort of the somber, sort of gothic horror bent. until we end up with something like The Lodge, which, great film. We had a lot of fun talking about that movie, but it's not a fun topic. So we're getting to a little bit of fun here. 967, I keep saying 967 because of the pizza phone number from Toronto as a child, 967-1111. It's probably the same number still. 976 Evil. I think I was probably about the same age when this hit as you were when Tales from the Crypt became a movie. So, yeah, young Lydia and her Goonie horror loves.
Well, I love a Goonie horror movie, so I'm excited to watch it. But on that note, I'm Wes Knipe.
And I'm Typical Lydia.
And you've been listening to Dead Air. If you like this show, you can find more episodes and other content on splatterpictures.net, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. We also upload all episodes to YouTube now, if you'd prefer to listen that way. You can find us across social media like Instagram, X, and TikTok, and the show is edited by Lydia Peever and hosted by Lydia Peever and me, Wes Knipe. We'll see you next time.